Okay, in this video I'm going to work through the this counter application, and I'll show you how to get that running, and I'll try to provide some explanation about what's going on in it. Okay, so it depends on getting this jQuery setup done and so on. So let's assume that that's done. And then I have a video here that shows how the application works. You can watch that. And I have a link to the running application here. So here where we log in to this page counter and it shows us how many times we've loaded the page. We can click reload and that will increase to 21, 22, like that. Looks like there's some delay in there in the JavaScript. 24. I think it's running faster the more I use the application, the faster it runs. So I think that's a characteristic of the kind of infrastructure that we're running on top of, that the application is sort of dormant until it's being accessed, and then it's brought out of dormancy and it's sort of moved closer to the user somehow. But as you can see, the response time is dramatically improving there. All right, so let's go back and recreate this application that I've already gone through and uploaded. So let's create a project called Counter, and let's go ahead and do that. So it's in here. I've got Eclipse running. Oh, by the way, I wanted to show this. It's good to keep your plugins up to date. In fact, that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm going to update the or check for updates. So I'm going to select that. And I got a message earlier before I started recording that that there were updates available. So I'm just going to go ahead and get that done. And here it is. So there's updates to the plugins that we're going to be using. So let's go ahead and install these. Install the updates. This is a good idea to check from time to time. The notification I got was it's off to the side. It wasn't. It would have been easy for me to miss it. So I wouldn't wait to see a notification about this. I would be proactive and check for updates, I don't know, once a week or so. Alright. I'm tempted to run that in the background. Let's go ahead and let's try that, see if that runs. Let's run that in the background. Although I'll be creating a new application, web application project here. That's going to be called Counter. Package is csc45.counter. This is my recommended package name. We don't want to use the web toolkit. We'll take that off. And there we go. I'm installing software that contains unsigned content, and yes, I want to continue that. And let's restart Eclipse. Okay. So looking in here. And at some point they're going to support Java 1.7, and I don't know if this is the time that they're doing that with this update. But we have to set the compiler compliance level to 1.6. that's what we've had to do so far, so I'm going to continue to do that. So I right-click on this project counter. Let's go into Properties, and under Java Compiler, we'll enable project-specific settings. And oh, it's already set on 1.6. I don't know how that worked, but that's that was the case, right? So I take this off. I'm still 1.6. All right, so that's all right. Let me double check that one. The properties, it shows 1.6. I think we're okay there. All right, let's expand that. We've got the basic application here with a servlet rather. Let's go ahead and run this. So I will debug as a web application. So just get a window open to test this. It's going to look something like this: http / here it is, localhost 8888. It's not available yet. There's the console. Looks like it was going through some initialization as a result of the plugin update. Let's go back and reload. There it is. That looks good. All right. So that is running. Let's go ahead and shut that down. By the way, in case you don't have that tab open, I recommend working with this this debug tab. I want to show that to you. Go into Window, Show View, and Other, and under Debug, I opened it up already actually. It's under this category Debug, and select this view right here. This lets us shut down the instances of the web server, and lets us see if we have any duplicate instances of the web server that we're not aware of. That's the issue that this procedure solves, because you can do these operations in different ways. So I shut that down. I terminated that. Just to check that this should no longer be running. See, there we go. Good. All right. Let's build this thing and then talk about it as we're building it. Here's the web XML file. I'm going to just grab that. Let's grab this whole thing here. Looks like there's quite a few servlets involved. And let's go ahead and drop that in there. Just paste that in there. And let's take a look at this. We've got a login servlet. And this is the servlet mapping for the login servlet. We've got a logout servlet. We'll let the user log out. And then there's an update count servlet. This is invoked by the JavaScript. And then we have a home servlet. This is for loading the single page that the application is based on. And here are two different versions of the JSP. One is prior to login, the other one is after login. So we'll talk about that. Let's go ahead and get the rest of the files here. So in a home servlet, let's go ahead and create that. Actually, let me just rename this one. Let's there's refactor, rename. call this the home servlet. Open that up. There it is. So what the home servlet does is it checks to see if the user is logged in. And how do we do that? What we do is we use this user service factory that's provided up here through the Google App Engine API. We call it get user service. That returns the user service, a reference to the user service object. We use that user service object to get a reference to a user. Now, if the person is not logged in, this call to get current user will return null. And this comparison will end up being true right there. And if the person is not logged in, then we want to forward to the pre-login JSP. If user is not null, then they are logged in, and then we'll forward to the post-login JSP. And let me clean up some of this here. I'll just highlight everything and then Command-Shift-F the format. And just clean up the code a little bit. There we go. Alright. So this home servlet is configured here. Right there. It's the home servlet. And we map it to the root of the application right there. Alright, let's go ahead and get the other ones. We've got a logout servlet. Now, what if the user selects this, they end up logging out of the of Google. Let's see, I'll look up here. New class. It's the logout servlet. And paste that in there. Clean it up. Looks like there's an error message there. Oh, log in, log out. And the name of the file must match the. Actually, let me do this. This is the logout servlet. The name of the file must match the class name. So this is the log. What I meant to do is the login servlet, and we'll just put it like that. There we go. So we have a login servlet here. It's complaining because I think it's clashing with this. This is the logout servlet. Let's fix that. Here's the logout servlet. And let's try to drop that in there. Clean up the formatting. I think that's going to clear all the error messages. There we go. Home servlet, login servlet, logout servlet. The logout servlet is a one-liner. What we do is as you can see here, it's a do-get. It's responding to a do-get request. And this is the response object that's passed into do-get. On that response object, we're going to send a redirection message to the user. We're going to redirect the browser to a resource that's provided through the Google App Engine system. And we get that URL to that resource. So we're not going to implement the resource. The resource to log out the user is provided by Google. We just need to get the URL to that resource. So the user service factory, we're going to get the instance for the user service factory. That's similar to what we did to the home servlet. And this returns the user service object, and then we're going to call create logout URL on that object, and that will return the URL that we want to redirect the user to. The other way to do this is to call this URL and embed it in the web page. That's not that's a different style. It's not a style that's as consistent with the Ajax-based approach that we're following for the application. So this is a style of that's more consistent with pushing the client-server interaction into Ajax transactions. Now this create logout URL takes a string, and what it does is it's the path to redirect the browser to after they successfully log out. So when we send a redirection request to the browser, we include in the request the redirection destination that Google will send the browser to after it completes the logout operation. All right, let's close that out. The login servlet is similarly could have been a one-liner, because we could have just here. This is the same call to get user service that we did in the logout servlet. We're just breaking it out into 2 lines here. I wanted to show people how to do it in 2 different ways. And then we take that and we call it create login URL. So if the user's not yet logged in to the application, what we do is we redirect the browser to the Google provided resource that enables the user to log in. And once again, it takes an argument here, which is the destination, the final destination that the browser gets redirected to after completing the login process. So there's the login servlet, and these are attached to these URL patterns: /login, /logout. Let's keep going. Probably we'll do this one next here. Let's see that. That's the update count servlet. So what the application does is it counts the number of times that a given user has visited or loaded the web page. All right, let's go ahead and do that one. This is, once again, this is called update count servlet. Let's create that. Update count servlet. Let's paste that in there. And then format everything. Okay. This one is quite a bit bigger. You can see lots of imports going on in there. And so what happens is this servlet is invoked from the JavaScript. So when the web page loads, it will call this this function, and when it runs, it's a HTTP post request. So if we can get here, we're going to assume that if the user's not hacking, if we get here, then it means the user's already logged in. So when we get the current user here on the user's service object, we should get a non-null user. But actually, it's possible for a user to create a request for the update count servlet without being logged in. Although it can't be done in a simple way with the application. It has to be, the request has to be somehow crafted, which is something that, say, a hacker would do who's trying to break into the application. So we check here to see if the returned user is null, and then what we do is we basically return this string called saying that they're unauthorized to access this update count resource, and then we need to return. This is something important to remember here. We're done processing in the servlet. Let's go ahead and finish up. And by the way, this string gets sent to the JavaScript, so the JavaScript will look for a response and display something. So actually, we can look at how that gets. This gets printed where we would normally print the count number. And okay, so let's suppose that the user is not null. That means that they're logged in. Then we use this datastore service factory, and we invoke the method get datastore service. This gives us an instance to a class that provides access to Google's a datastore service. And once we have that, we can do some things. And let's look up this user. So basically, for each user that's accessing your application, we need to create a record for them and record how many times they've been to the application. So let's find our record, and what we're going to do in our record of the user's access to our application, we're going to use the user's ID. So this is the Google account ID, so which will be unique. And so we have to create a key that's used to search for or to look up the user. So the key here, we call create key on the key factory object. We have to explain in the first argument here what kind of an object that we're looking for. And that's they call it a kind. So that's why I have it here as the user kind. And it's roughly means the class name. So we want user instances. So we say the kind is, user. We want an object of kind user or type user. We could even call it like that. So in the data store, you've got these chunks of information, and they're organized into different kinds. So the chunks that we're creating and accessing are of kind user. Now so when we look up a user object, that we need to create a key to do the lookup. And that's what we're doing in this line here. So we have the kind of object we're looking up, and then we have the key to find that object in the data store. And once again, we're using the Google account ID for that purpose. And then we create a query object to do the lookup operation. We repeat this information, which I don't understand why. In the query object, we indicate the kind of object we want, and then we also provide a reference to the key that contains the information about, this specific object, its ID in the data store. So once we have this query object, then we pass it into a call to prepare on the data store. And this call to prepare on the data store is going to return it's going to return something like a prepared query. There it is, prepared query. I guessed it right. So this call to prepare returns an instance of prepared query, and it hasn't done the query yet. We have to call a method on the prepared query and to make it interact with the data store. And the method that we're invoking is as single entity. So we're telling the prepared query, we're telling it that we expect a single entity. Either we'll have 0 or 1 entities. I've been calling them objects, but actually in their data store terminology, they're called entities. So this is the kind of entity, a user entity, and when we do this query, we expect either 0 or 1, a single entity. So now we get a response from this as single entity call, and we need to check to see if it's null. So that's what we do here. So if the user's not in the database, we'll need to create a record or an entity for that user. So we do that here at this point. We create an instance of the entity class, pass in as a first argument the type, the kind rather, which is user, and then the key to get to this entity. And we're going to have a property field on that entity called the user count field. We're going to call it count up here. So the user count field is assigned the string count. So you've got these entities. They have fields, and this key. This is how the entity is looked up. So in the sense, it has this get user. It's got this user ID already inside the entity as it's like a primary key field. And we want to add another field called count, which we do through this set property method here. So the user doesn't have any history of accessing this web page, so we assign the value 0 to the count field. So this little piece of code here runs when the user is seen for the first time. They're not yet in the data store. Okay. So at this point, basically, when user entity was null, we set it to something. We set it as property. And but if user entity is not null, that means that property should already be there and equals some value other than 0. And once we have this user entity, whether we created it ourselves or whether it was returned to us from our query, we're going to access the property, the count property. So we make a call to get property. That's going to return a long. We cast it to a long. And we know it will be a long because that's how we built the entity to begin with. And so we return this count, and then we'll increment the count in the next line because we're counting the number of times they're accessing this resource. And then after we increment the count, we need to overwrite the old value for counts. We do that calling setProperty. So as you can see, if we created the object for the first time, we're now replacing 0 with 1. And finally, we call put on the data store, passing in a reference to the entity. Either it's a new entity, or it's in a pre-existing entity that we created before that we just want to update it. So this put operation will create new entities and it will update existing entities. And that's it. When we're done this operation, we return a response. Basically, we just send the number. We're sending the number of times the users access this resource. And then we're done there. All right, let's keep moving on here. That was a long explanation. So here's the JSP. Let's create this. Here's the pre-login JSP. And let's get down here. I'll create a folder called JSP. And under WebINF, that's because this will be hidden. And let's create a new file in here. New file called pre-login. And let's edit that. Oh, that popped open in this text wrangler. Let's if we wanted to edit that internally inside Eclipse, we can right-click the file name and then open with text editor. Now we're inside Eclipse, but it's okay. You can edit that outside of Eclipse as well. Let's paste in the code. This will need to be checked. This stuff here. And let's do the same thing with the post login. That's a file. And it's called post-login.jsp. Once again, it opens up that external tool called Text Wrangler. It's a free text editor that runs on the Macintosh, and I recently installed it. So here is the post-login.jsp. Let's paste that in there. You get nice syntax highlighting on that. All right, let's save that and quit. And so that's now in there. There's the post login JSP. Oops. Let's take a look at that. Right click, open with text editor, just to keep it in inside Eclipse. See, it's Eclipse's record of what post login has is differs from what's in the file system. So we need to refresh. So we'll go up to File and refresh. There we go. We just told Eclipse to update its cache with what exists in the file system, because that's the reason that happened is we've modified the contents of the file using that text wrangler, which is running outside of Eclipse. It's not communicating with Eclipse. It's only communicating with the file system. All right, let's move along here. Now we're ready to test, but actually we're not quite ready to test. We need to get the jQuery stuff installed, and you can, one way to do that is just to grab it from another project. That's what I want to do here. Here's the CSS folder, drop it in the WAR file here, and get the JS folder, and drop it in the WAR folder up here, and that's good. We do want to make sure that we have the right names for things. And just to show you what's going on there, this is jQuery UI 1.8.16. What I copied from the web page is 1.8.16. Good. Oh, but look at this. The jQuery core is different. So this will need to be modified. And this business up here, I'll just take a look at that link is still the same. That name is the same. So we're now this user interface jQuery UI library is now operating against a more recent version of the core jQuery library. So we can update that. Let's put that in there. That's 171. Alright, that's great. Yeah, we'll need to do that in here as well. It's 171. And it says we're ready to test. I haven't explained about the JSP yet. Let's go ahead and test and get back to that. So I'm in this application. In fact, we've already deployed and tested that. So what we can do there in this debug view, we can relaunch. Looks good. Normally there's a problem that you have to resolve. Looks like we're not lucky because it looks like the old application. This is the counter application, right? So we're still getting the this index file here. So basically, we don't want that. I'm going to delete that. The index file is out. And now if you look at this, not the JSP, but this web XML file, we're sending in a request for slash here. This is where we're matching here. So we should get to the home servlet, and if there's an index.html file in there, it's using the system's welcome file list settings to serve that up. And we did not specify a welcome file list in here, but there is a global setting for that you can find in the web server. All right, let's reload that. There it is. So once again, we're running locally here, which is different than running as a deployed application. The infrastructure here that we're using is going to simulate the logged in user. So the user is going to click login here. Once again, this is a resource provided by the Google App Engine library, and you can see it's got the URL. It starts with _AH and login !, continue equals. This, by the way, this is our slash. That's what got passed in where. So we're clicking login. So we ran this login servlet. This is that slash. That this is the this 2F is the code, hexadecimal code for that slash. It's they call it URL encoded. So you don't want to pass the slash around inside the URL, so you encode it using this hexadecimal value 2Fs, and %sign is also used in there to identify that as an encoded character. So this link here, this whole link was created by that call to create login URL. And that's where we redirected the user. So we're at this URL that we got redirected to. We redirected the browser here. And this, you don't see this path. You don't see this. We didn't configure this, so we did not configure a login, a servlet that could be arrived at by following this path to it. But nevertheless, this is a path that that the Google App Engine plugin inserts into the application when it gets launched. And this is used to simulate the actual login that the user will go through when they access the application in its deployed state. So they give you this test email. We could change this. This is say xyz@example.com, at whatever, at x.com. Let's go ahead and click the login. It simulates a successful login. And it looks like we're getting an error message there. HTTP method get is not supported by this URL. So the update count is trying to access, the JavaScript is trying to access the update count servlet using get request. So that looks like an error. That is in fact maybe a mistake in my website. Let me look at that. So this is a post method. So we're submitting a post request here. That means the update servlet, update count servlet, this is do post. Why is it coming through as a get? What is going on there? So, with this update count, this is what it looks like. If we could generate a GET request by typing it into the URL like that. And it says the GET is not supported. But why would this page have that that same issue? Looks like we're issuing a GET request. And once again, let's look at the page source on that. Oh, no, here it is. Oh, the method. Oh, this is a bug that I had from earlier time. Is here's the post login JSP. This should not be method. This should be type. And I'll need to correct that on my website. I modified the JSP. We don't need to restart the web server for that change to go through. So let's go ahead and reload this page. And you can see there's no error now. And I can continue to reload that, and you'll see it's incrementing the number of times. Oh, that's identical to clicking reload here. It does the same thing. I better make a quick change before I forget to fix that. And bear with me. I don't know how to pause this. I'm running on the Macintosh. And I don't know how to pause record Let me just fix this this mistake. Here is the mistake here. This should be type. And there's the save button. Okay, so it looks good, that's running, and we can log out. Now let's log in again. We logged in before as XYZ. This time we'll log in as test.example.com, and this is our first time accessing the page. I'm going to reload the page. There it is, second time. And log in as our original. So we're simulating the login of different users, people with different Google accounts. So this is XYZ at x.com. So now this is a repeat visit. So we should have the stored record of how many times they've loaded the page. It's now 9. And that's how that works. Let's trace it through a little bit. Here's I logged out. So this is the page. We're currently not logged in. And this is the home servlet. When the home servlet runs and we're not logged in, then when we look up the user, that Google will tell us that the user is not there. They're not logged in. So we forward to the pre-login page. Let's take a look at the pre-login page. There it is, the pre-login JSP. And it's a pretty simple page. It has this page load counter title. And we can see that here. In this tab, page load counter appears in there. And the heading page load counter, there's the heading page load counter. Finally has a login button down here. There's our login button. And the login button has been styled by the jQuery UI library, like this called a button right there. And also when we load the document here, this ready function runs, we style the button and we register a click event handler with that button here. It's one line. It just it tells us when the user's ready to log in. We tell it we tell the browser to load this URL. So by clicking on login, we change the window location. We replace the window location with /login. That generates a request for that login page. This is equivalent to clicking this button is equivalent to doing this. There we go. And you see the URL. We're not at /login, and the reason is that we in fact got to /login. If you look at the web XML file, we requested. There it is. We requested this URL pattern, so we were sent to the login servlet. And in the login servlet, we just immediately redirected the browser to this login URL that's provided to us by Google. And this is in fact the login URL when we're in testing mode. Now after we deploy the application to the Google App Engine cloud, then that URL will change. And the URL will be the actual Google account login page. So when we log in, this email, this is like the account ID. Let's go ahead and log in here. Now when we click login, after the login completes, the Google will redirect the browser back to /, and that's what's going on here. See, we've gone back to this /. And that means that we sent a request in for the home servlet. This time, instead of user coming up null, it comes up not null. And so we redirect to the post login JSP. And when the post login JSP runs, this is what we get. We get this this title, like before. Let's see, we get that title, and we get this heading, page load counter. Let's take a look at that. There it is. And then we get the reload button, the logout button styled using the jQuery library. And finally, we get this line. You have loaded this page this many times. So this span element right here has an ID, and the ID is set to count. We initialize it to question mark because when we construct the page the first time, we don't know how many times the user's accessed the page. We get that information from the update count servlet, which gets invoked here when we issue this ajax request. So we need to review what's going on here. When the document loads, we have these basic HTML elements, and then our ready function. After that, those are constructed as part of the document object model. Then the ready function runs, and when the ready function runs, we register a global ajax error handler here, which just pops up this alert. And actually, we triggered that already. It said that I think that was triggered already. Yeah, there was a pop-up window there that gave an error message. And then the second thing we do after we register the global ajax error message, the error event handler, then we issue an ajax request for the update count resource. So that's the URL, update count. If you look in the web XML file, /update count here is mapped to the update count servlet, and that's the name of an instance of this class here. Let's go back to post login. So we're constructing this ajax request. This is the URL, and we're by data type here. We're telling ajax, the ajax method, that we expect to receive a plain text back from the web server when we send in this request for update count, and here we're telling ajax to send the request by post method as opposed to, say, get or one of the other methods. And then we're registering a success callback handler. So when the ajax request sent to the server, when a successful response is returned to us, our handler, our success handler here, which is a single line, will run. And if the service returns an error response, this success function will not run. Instead, our global ajax error handler will run instead. When the all right. So when a successful response is received, what do we do here? Well, we look up the element with ID equal to count, which is right there. It's this span. So you see the question mark, that's inside the content of the span element. We're going to replace the question mark with a value. With the value that's returned by the web server when requested by the ajax request. All right, got that plugged in, and so let's see. Here we look up this this count element, and that returns the ajax wrapper around that element, and we're going to call the HTML function on that wrapper. And so basically we're saying that element has content, set the content to the string that was returned by the web server when we submitted this update count request. So that basically we're returning a number. And if you look at that, you know, we're just, the very last thing we do, we're writing the count, which is a simple number. We're writing that into the output stream. That's all we do. We only write one thing into the output stream, which is right there. It's the last thing we do. This line before it is simply is setting an HTTP response header, and we're setting the content type header by calling the method setContentType. We're setting it to text HTML. So this content type here is consistent with this type here, this data type that's specified here in our call to Ajax. So let's go back. We're reading through what happens when the document is loaded. So this ready method calls. We register the global Ajax handler. We send in a request to the update count, and that when the response comes in, we replace this question mark down here with we replace this question mark down here. We replace that with the value returned from the server. We style the reload button, and we register a click handler with the reload button. We style the logout button. We register a click handler with the logout button, and that's it. This is how we load the page. Now at this point, the user can click the reload button and the logout button. So when he clicks the reload button, it's pretty straightforward. The reload button is here. We just we call reload on the location object. That's an attribute of the window object. We're telling the this is a a JavaScript call. It's just telling the browser to reload the web page. And when we reload the web page, of course, that's going to bump up the number of times the page has been loaded. Because every time we reload the web page, that ready method's going to run again. We're going to end up sending a request to update count. And here is the logout button here. This is the click handler registration. And when the user clicks that, we tell we call replace on the location attribute of the window object, passing in the URL, the path. If this is a URL, so a relative URL. Well, it's relative in the sense it's relative to the host where this page was loaded from, but it is a absolute. That's why we're starting with a slash here. So it is an absolute path on that host. So we're we're telling the browser to request a new web page, which is /logout. That will get processed by the logout servlet here. And what the logout servlet does is it redirects the user. I just call it send redirect. It redirects the browser to Google's logout emulator. And when we send that redirect to Google's logout emulator, we're also passing the final redirect destination that we want to send the user to, which is the root here. And that basically is it. I mean, that's how the application works. It's complicated for the little bit of work that it does, but it provides a foundation to build more. This example provides a foundation to build more complicated applications that are Ajax based and that make use of the Google App Engine data store. And actually, that's the main thing that you should get out of this. Is actually also the login and logout functionality, and the manner in which we interact with the Google App Engine data store. There's a lot of documentation to read about the data store, so I encourage all of you to read bits of that every day and to do experiments. I've done my experiments already, so I can write this code, this type of code at this point. You're going to need to also read through that documentation and perform experiments on your own to fully understand how the data store is working. All right, that's it. That summarizes this this exercise. Let's see if I have anything else to say here. So deploy. I'm not going to show you how to deploy. We've done that before in the previous video, and I've already deployed it anyway. And there it is. Oh, look at this. What is going on here? So if I reload this, if I hit it too fast, I get an error message. Error. Update count. Yeah, that's something that I could look into.